It is a rainy, wet night here in Eugene, Oregon, but we are live. Just made it back to our apartments. Instant reactions here. My name is John Evans, joined as always by my co-host Owen Murray. Oregon just won a sloppy game, 21-7 over Wisconsin, but the Ducks able to find momentum in the second half and really put things together better across that second half. Owen, we just got back from the game. Where are the instant takeaways from you? Where were the reactions at with this?
Yeah, this was not a pretty game. And I think there's two ways to go with it. You can go, hey, I think the Ducks really did well to find their way through an atmospheric river and find a way through this game. You could also go, hey, this is a team that got shut out pretty soundly by a couple other teams. And I don't know if the Ducks are on that level. I think it's the real answer is somewhere probably in between, because the truth is it was really hard to play in this game. It was wet. It was gross. We saw a ton of players slip and not be able to catch the ball. On the other hand, Oregon should not be struggling so much with a rushing offense that's like somewhere around 114th in the country, missing like their top three backs. It's I think it's somewhere in between. I certainly don't think Oregon came out in this game playing its best football, but that is partly down to the weather.
No, yeah, exactly. The weather was certainly a factor, definitely in that first half. And Lanning talked about it after the game, really affected what they were able to feel like they could do within the passing game with what Dante Moore in the first half was able to do, what Brock Thomas was able to do in the second half. Just a quick update before we get into things. Dante Moore sounds like he's going to be okay. We saw him come into Brock Thomas's post-game presser to show some love to his backup, but looks like he's going to be fine. Lanning said he's a bit dinged up, but should be ready and healthy back for that Iowa game. So good to hear. For Oregon fans, sounds like it was just a little more cautionary, and they felt like they were at a spot in that game where they had control of things. So good to hear that Dante Moore is going to be all right going forward.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with Brock Thomas. 4 for 4. Just comes in and he's a confident option. Really, when you look at a backup, you're just looking for a guy who can, especially in a tough situation, just make the ball, like the throws, hand it off. It's one of those spots where he comes in and does exactly what he wanted to do, and then Dante Moore comes into the post game and he's like, man, yeah, great job. Like a lot of love. And there's a lot of questions, out in the Oregon Twitterverse about like, hey, why is Brock Thomas QB2? Like, hey, like what is going on here? I think it was just a great moment that shows like he really is. I mean, I don't know if we're ready to say he's that guy, but like he is a very capable backup quarterback, which is not something we came into this season understanding.
Yeah, there have been questions from the fan base over the last couple of weeks, as we've seen in some of these. In that game last week, as things got out of hand against Rutgers, Brock Thomas being the guy to go in there instead of Austin Novosad, who had been early in the year, Luke Moga, when Novosad was dealing with that lat injury he had. But it sounds like Brock Thomas has just really done everything to separate himself in practice. It's a guy who he's from Oregon. Dad played at Oregon. Grandpa played at Oregon. Knows exactly what this program is. Another Sheldon High School guy. I was just shout out to Isaac Streeter. I was sitting next to him in the press conference, and he was telling me that he should have asked if Brock was also president of the high school fishing club like Justin Herbert was. But yeah, he handled things really, really well, and they put him in a situation where, because of the weather, because of what they were able to do on the ground, they didn't have to ask a ton from him. They knew they were going to be pounding the rock in the second half. The Dam said afterwards that they knew they weren't going to be going away from the run. They knew they weren't going to be abandoning that in the second half. But other than, the one play where it ends up being a completion to Corian Moore, that almost certainly should have been an interception if it's not pouring down rain out there. Other than that, I thought Brock Thomas was really, really strong in that game, making plays with his legs a couple of times, hitting to Corian Moore. I think his arm is better than you'd think for a guy his size for a walk-on and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it shows like a level to which guys can come into this Will Stein offense and they're like, all these guys in the room are guys who understand how to run this offense, and they really do put a lot of emphasis on making sure they can run it. And I think that's exactly what you saw in this game. It's just another side of what Will Stein's offense looks like, is being able to lean on the rushing game like this. And like there is a part of his arm that should have been a pick. It's just guys who can be point guards. They got a room full of point guards.
Going back to that first half, Owen, Oregon really could not get anything going. That first quarter, especially, Oregon 4 drives, the turnover on downs after you get what it felt like. Me and Eric Scopel from Duck Territory, we were saying it was just a little bit mean to do that to a team you're expected to beat by 30 points and come out there and do the surprise onside kick from the jump. But Lanning said that some they scouted, they expected to be able to do because they thought Fickle was going to defer the second half, and that's exactly what they were able to execute. But offense not doing anything in that first half, and then what were you seeing on that touchdown drive to not to start the second quarter, but it was the first drive of the second quarter for the Ducks.
It was the whole second quarter.
Exactly. It basically took 8-minute drive, 16 plays, 99 yards. Oregon goes down the whole field, and it's led by Jordan Davison. And they gave him his first carry to start off that drive, and he goes 9 for 49 on that drive and punches in the touchdown at the end. But really was the guy that felt like found momentum for the Ducks, and he was the guy that sparked things throughout the rest of this game.
Yeah, I mean, when you just look at that, especially the first quarter, but that first half, like the part of this Badgers defense, this Badgers team that really is elite to some level is their rushing defense. Right now it's the number 18 rush defense by yards per game in the country, and to a level that is because a lot of teams are just able to throw on them, and they don't end up running the ball, but it's also because they have some strong players there that really did show up here in a game where it is tough to get it going on the ground. You have to be thinking. I asked Jordan Davis in the post game, like what are you thinking when you're running? He's like, before the game, like before the run, when we're in the huddle, ball security, like when I'm taking the head off, ball security, when I'm running, ball security, like they're so focused on keeping it there that it splits your focus a little bit more, and it just allows a rush defense that's actually pretty underrated, pretty good to be able to make some plays. What Davison did on that drive though is it felt like kind of like a force of will thing. Like there were some of those runs where he's got this ability. Deer Hill compared him to a bowling ball the other day. He just got an ability to kind of roll through people.
He had the one to get down to the 1 yard
line. Where
they punched.
Yeah, I know what you're talking. He walks over a tackle, walks through.
Yeah, it was right before they threw the touchdown to Janoris Wilson, I think. But it was like a 9-yard run down to the 1 yard line. He just ran through a guy. Just like the contact balance that he has at that size is. That's why Dan obviously trusts him to be the goal line guy. 10 touchdowns so far for him in his freshman year. It's just pretty crazy to see.
He's just got like a level of wiggle.
That was
really impressive that we didn't expect. He bunches in 3 touchdowns against Montana State, but we don't really get to see that. Like the 20-yard touchdown especially, which we can get into here is like we talked earlier this year that this Oregon running back room is good because they have a lot of guys who can do one thing really well. Like Jordan Davison is a really good goal line back. Noah Winton is a little bit more multifaceted, but he's just like a great explosive guy. Deer Hill, can be the guy who splits wide. He's more of a gadget player. Well, these players are becoming more multifaceted, and to see that development, especially as a freshman, really, really impressed me.
It's something I've been asking for since that Indiana game is just for Davison to continue to get more of these just regular running back touches and not just the goal line stuff. And he got a couple of those against Rutgers, took 4 carries for 100 yards last week, and back-to-back 100-yard games for him, goes over 102 on this one. By the time it got to halftime, I was saying, let's try to get Jordan Davison to 20 touches on the ground by the end of this game, because you could see that his momentum he's hard to tackle because he's so big. And when you're in a game like that where it's cold, it's wet, the more you continue to pound the rock with that guy throughout the second half, just the harder it gets on that defense. It continues to wear on them. And he's just been a guy that he runs really well between the tackles, which Oregon's other running backs haven't done as well as. I mean, he's done the best out of Oregon's running backs. I don't want to say they haven't done it well, but what Hill and Whittington do is when they get to the outside on those outside zone plays, when they get those counter plays where they can break those big ones. That's what Will Stein likes to do with those guys. But Davison has been really good between the tackles, just getting north-south. He's really good at his first cut and being able to get vertical off of that and explode through the line of scrimmage and pick up those yards. And I've been really impressed watching it. Going back to that Indiana game a couple of weeks ago, I think I would like to continue to see him and Whittington just as a 1-2. You got a little bit more of a speed guy, a little bit your pop guy. It's not I don't want to call it like a thunder and lightning, but that's just a standard 1-2 running back punch. That you'd have that your 2 running backs working together, and I think that's those 2 guys, and then you have your third option of Hill to be like you said, a gadget guy, a change up thing. But those 2 guys, that looks like it's something really solid going through the rest of this year. You get to almost 200 yards on the ground from them this week after big performances from both of them last week. I think I'm really excited to see where specifically those 2 as a tandem continue to go the rest of this year.
And I mean, the two things I want to go back to with this room is what, like, what number one, just the level of development that we've seen from these guys to go from being a goal line, not that it wasn't always there, but to go from being a goal line guy to being a guy who they trust to take the ball in the middle of the field or take the ball on the goal line and carried it 9 times on a drive.
Yeah.
Is number one really impressive. That's something we've seen from all these freshmen. And the other thing is just the level of ball security in this game from Oregon's backs. When you run the ball, I think it's like 50 plus times to be able to hang on to it so well in a game like against, again, a pretty good run defense is something that's fantastic, because if you look at one of these drives and Oregon gives up the ball in its own territory, like that can be a huge swing. Wisconsin couldn't get much going in this game, but a field goal maybe changes this. It's the ball security was impressive in that.
Yeah, there was a couple of like some snaps that didn't go exactly right for Brock Thomas. I thought some of those seemed like literally just like the ball was wet and it slipped through his hands. But when Wisconsin had a couple of times where they tried to go under center and hand the ball off, and they were having issues either getting the snap there or on the handoff, put the ball on the dirt a couple of times. For Oregon to not be doing anything like that, and like you said, when you just are running the ball all the time, and for the running backs to not put it on the ground at any time, that's a huge win for this staff.
Yeah, it's big, and it's again, just in a game that these low scoring games can be changed by a turnover.
Yeah.
And the Ducks were not going to let that happen.
Yeah, only one turnover in this game, and it's the
interception.
Oh yes, the interception.
Yeah,
I was thinking there was one of the fumbles that got recovered, but actually Oregon didn't jump on it either, though. So it was that fumble. Yeah, just Austin's fumble or interception to really seal things there at the end.
Which is like, it feels notable because you look at these rainy games, and you're like, these are games where they make mistakes. Wisconsin puts it on the ground twice, but like outside of that, it really felt like it was just a game where they couldn't get anything going. They were just punting back and forth, and there weren't not that there weren't opportunities to make mistakes, but like these were like, for a while there, it was just three plays. I was really impressed by James Ferguson Reynolds in this game.
I was about to say,
this kid's like arsenal of punts is like unbelievable. And it's like Dan talked about afterwards. It's like, it's not going to affect the way you call the offense, but it's like, to understand that he's got like 5 different ways he can get an end over end punt that's going to roll down to the 1 yard line is phenomenal. And it just puts a team in like a really tough position where, maybe in a different situation, if that just hangs up there, Wisconsin gets the ball on its own 20-yard line and has space to breathe and can really open up its playbook a little bit more. Now they're on their one. Yeah, they're on their half-yard line.
This like line drive punt thing that he does, where he line drives it and knows it's going to roll all the way down to the 1. He's done it a couple of times, and it works really well because you give your guys time to just go down there, wait for it to land right on the 1. It really does make it feel like anytime he can pin somebody back deep, and like you said, showing off the different clubs in his bag. And another time he had like a end over end backspin type punt that was Wisconsin ended up calling a fair catch on like the 5 or so, but that was one of the ones where you get the hang time, but then it lands and it bounces backwards towards your guys instead of towards the end zone. And the pass too for a guy
I was
Australian, didn't grow up playing football, but Brock Thomas said he's seen him hit that pass in practice multiple times, and says the arm's pretty good from Ferguson Reynolds, and we've seen the legs already too. On Odds and Audibles this week, one of our props that the audience gave us was if there's going to be a special teams touchdown, and I said probably not, but if there's going to be anything, I think it's James Ferguson Reynolds on some sort of fake punt, and I was almost ready to lose it when Roger Saliapaga had took that 140 yards for a touchdown from Ferguson Reynolds, but unfortunately called back for a holding, so it doesn't go down in the stat sheet. But yeah, Ferguson Reynolds, both offensively as a weapon, but one of the best punters. And when your defense is playing that good, you punt it away in some of these situations when the offense hasn't been doing anything, because you're going to trap them back and the defense is going to shut things down, because that's what it was doing all night. Looking at that side of the ball, I mean, Hunter Simmons, 7 of 21 passing. Gideon
for a while there, he was like 1 of 12 though. It was bad.
Yeah, Eric also had like noted that. He like noted on Twitter, he was like, wonder when the last time Oregon had a quarterback they played against could only complete 1 pass, and then immediately Simmons hit his next like 3 out of his next 5, and people started blaming Eric for that. But yeah, but Wisconsin not able to get anything going. We know about the situation at quarterback. It's not been what they've wanted over the last couple of seasons. They've been dealing with injuries. It was Tyler Van Dyke last year, Billy Edwards Jr. this year. But Oregon defensively, how impressed were you with what this unit was able to do today when you're going against a team that isn't, especially passing wise at the top of their game, but they still ran the ball pretty well in the first half, but Oregon was able to really shut that down in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, I was a little bit concerned just because it's such a situation where you understand, like, there's not really a huge threat of play action here. Like yes, like there is a chance, but like, to be so honest, the Oregon secondary is like superior to what Wisconsin brings out wide, and so I was interested to see when they're in a situation when they can commit that much towards stopping the run, that there were like a number of spots where a back could get into the second level. And I mean, in the second half, yes, yeah, it absolutely did get better. And they can't jump on either of the fumbles. Like, it is what it is. I put that down to more just being a tough situation. Like, the ball's really slippery. I was on the field for the Dalen Austin interception, but good job jumping it. I was curious. I know we saw a little bit more Devin Jackson in this game. I thought he looked pretty strong. I wanted to know. I know that's a guy you've been keeping an eye on. What did you see from him?
I think he's been a lot better in recent weeks. I think he's been playing. I think he's been playing better. I think it's sometimes it's a matchup in games like this where it's better out there than Jerry Mixon. Mixon is such a guy that relies on his instincts so much to jump into the backfield, jump routes to make interceptions like he was doing at the beginning of the year.
There was a great blitz hurry he had on Simmons right in the first quarter.
Exactly, and he makes those plays, but at times too, it'll leave him jumping into the wrong lane on run defense or things like that. And Jackson's just a little bit more of a stronger, more physical player. So I thought he's been better over the last couple of weeks, and I thought he did well in that matchup too. Him and Betcher had a couple of plays as well where he jumped out of a gap or something to try to make a play in the backfield and let them get let a running back get by. But overall, I think these guys are doing what they're doing back at linebacker. I just want to I saw a comment here from AZ Merce about the goal line defense, and I just wanted to bring that up and bring that up to you because I was looking at it after the game. Oregon still has not stopped a team in the red zone this year. One of three teams, along with my dad's Virginia Tech Hokies and the Rice Owls, who have not stopped a team yet in the goal line. That was going back to last week's stats. I didn't update it for whatever whoever Rice played today and Virginia Tech's game against Cal last night. But Oregon. What do you think that's something that the Ducks should really be worried about? Or Wisconsin able to hit a chunk play off of, I think it was off of play action on third down, catch a jump ball and end up down on the 1 yard line and are able to punch it in after a fumble that nearly cost them possession, but are able to punch it in. Yeah. Do you think this is a concern for the Ducks at all at this point? Because that was still the first unit offense in there in some of these games where it's been those late touchdowns. It's because it's the backups or whoever in there at the end of the game. That was still the first unit defense in there. Do you think Oregon should be concerned about where they're at in the red zone and on the goal line?
I think, when you start looking at the red zone, yes, goal line defense is one of the hardest things to do in football.
This is true.
It's like a situation where you're put at an absolute disadvantage. But like if you're going to commit all your resources inside, they have the freedom to go play action. I mean, just like you saw on the G-Baby touchdown, and make you look silly. I think when you look at a stat like Oregon has allowed a touchdown every time a team's been in the red zone. Yes, it is an issue. The other thing is, like, how many times did Montana State get to the red zone? How many times did Oregon State get to the red zone or Northwestern? Like Oregon doesn't allow teams to get in the red zone a ton of times. Like even in that Penn State game, Nittany Lions barely got in the red zone. And when they did, they scored. The Ducks rely a lot more on just being able to stop teams before they get there, I guess, and force field goals and force punts. And I mean, to a level, it has worked very well. It is a concern when you start seeing teams get into the red zone, like when you start playing better teams and they are able to get there. But I want to say I don't think that's the whole story. I don't think because Oregon's allowed a team to score every time it's in the red zone, it has horrible red zone defense. Goal line defense is one of the hardest things to do in football. Oregon also doesn't allow teams to get in the red zone a lot, so it looks inflated when they do score there.
No, I definitely agree with you. You look at that number, and it's 12 trips to the red zone. Going into tonight, that Oregon had let their opponents score on, and the other teams that were down at the bottom, Rice had done it 16 times, and Virginia Tech had done it 32 times, and hadn't gotten one stop on defense in the red zone.
That's why they don't have a coach anymore in Oregon.
Yes, that is exactly why Brent Pry is no longer employed. So I think it's not necessarily you want to see a stop come up at some point there, but I don't think, like you
Yeah.
said, they're not letting teams get there for the most part. So I don't think it's something to super worry about. Goal line wise, yeah, they haven't gotten that push there. But yeah, you said it's hard at a certain point. You do got to get a stop on the goal line because
of course.
You want to see that so you can have it feel like you're ready for it when it comes up in a big moment later in the season. But right now, I'm not overly concerned about where the red zone defense is at.
Yeah, but that comment's right. It is what they do in the Big Ten. It is something to look at. It's something we've asked them about, and like Oregon is looking at it. They know that stat exists.
Exactly.
When you look at this as a whole, where does it leave Oregon? Because you have a bye week now. Again, a second bye week in definitely under a month, and then you go to Iowa. It's like where this definitely isn't like you felt like, oh man, Oregon really is back after that Rutgers game. Like this is the bounce back game they needed. This is a bit of like a different feeling for the Ducks. So where do you sit here with Oregon as they roll into a bye week and then head to Iowa? A couple of really crucial games here at Iowa, Minnesota, and then USC and Washington.
Yeah, you got to look at this game and accept that some of the things that you weren't doing well are situational. You lose your quarterback at a certain point. Obviously the weather inclement. There are certainly things to clean up. Wisconsin was getting pressure in that first half. Their edge rushers were getting by guys like Harkey at times, and putting pressure on Dante, able to get a sack on that first drive. I think 4 for them in the game. So you got to clean things like those up. But overall, I think you're still feeling, especially with the defense, the way the defense was able to play today. Yeah. Wisconsin wasn't going to be doing much passing wise, but especially that second half, the way you're able to shut down their ground game, I think you got to feel good about that. And then just continue to find those things to clean up on offense. I think you got to consider that last week you had such an incredible game offensively where it felt like everything was going just about perfectly, that at this point you got to accept that, yeah, that wasn't our best, but we also weren't in a situation to really do that. So let's continue to work and go make sure we can have another game that looks more like Rutgers than that when you do go to Iowa in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Iowa, and that's another situation where weather might be an issue. And so what the Ducks have done is they've shown that they can, win when it's not pretty. It's a spot where you got to run the ball a lot. And yes, Iowa does have a good defense, but so does Wisconsin. This is one of the better run defenses, certainly in the Big Ten and in the country. And to be able to, show up and do that, it doesn't mean nothing. It's something that's going to be in the back of their mind if it gets cold or if it's raining Kinnick Stadium.
Yeah, Iowa blew out Minnesota today. So those are two teams that Oregon has left on its schedule. So that's an interesting one to see. Iowa's defense scored a pair of touchdowns today, 41-3 for them. So that team continues to look strong. Strong this season is going to be a test for Oregon when they go out there. That Minnesota game should be that that easier spot for the Ducks. But then you got USC, a team. Exactly. So you always weird things can happen on Fridays. Just ask Miami last weekend. But yeah, and then you got two tough teams though in USC and Washington. So there will be plenty of opportunity. Washington, who beat a ranked Illinois team today, and could have a chance to be ranked by the time that game comes around at the end of the year. So you will have plenty of opportunity to test yourself and continue to show improvement throughout the rest of the year, and feel like you're ready for those playoff games in December and January.
Yeah. Weird game, but that's football, right?
Exactly. It's always going to be a weird game when it's you got rain expected the entire time, and then that's basically what happened, except for some of that first quarter.
Absolutely.
Which is also funny too, to think about how much worse the offense was when it wasn't raining in the first quarter. I honestly just considered that they didn't get anything passing wise going in the one time it wasn't raining, and then it started raining the whole time. And then they're like, all right, now let's play some offense.
Again, that's the game, right? It's a weird spot. But
that's football. That's football. We play a game with an oblong ball. It's designed to bounce weird ways. That's exactly what this game is.
Awesome.